Hello, welcome back to Tactical Tuesday with Johnny Tiger on July 5th, 2022. Today I want to take you guys back to basic and we're going to talk a little bit about the three fundamental ways how force is generated in a fight. Whether it be cage fight, ring fight, or down and dirty street fight. Why is this important? Because while we are going through our self-defense training, our martial arts training, we learn a lot of a lot of technique. We learn a lot of theories. And things tend to get very confusing. You learn different ways to throw punches, whether to roll your shoulder into it, whether to turn your hand, whether to flare your elbow out, whether to keep your elbow in, whether to have your hand vertical or horizontal, whether to throw your hook nice and wide or a nice and narrow hook. You learn all kinds of different ways to kick high, kick low, kick sideways, kick forward. You learn different ways to enter, to shoot in, to grab the head, to grab the arm, to break the arm, theoretically, because I want to tell you guys, breaking the arm is a lot harder than a lot of people might realize. It's easy to sprain someone's wrist if you know what you're doing, to maybe dislocate the shoulder or elbow if you're lucky, but to actually break it, really difficult. It sometimes takes the person falling down, having an accident, and you pull the arm, twist the arm in just the right moment to make that happen. But anyway, all these punches, kicks, grabs, all involve force. And not all force is made equal. And by understanding how to generate force, how different force is generated, and what you're working with, then you will be a lot more complete. The three kind of force generation we're going to be talking about today have been known by many different names. When I was first learning martial arts, when I was little, these were told to me in using different names, different words. But we are going to go with the most up-to-date, most common place that you will hear today. We're going to be talking about inertia or inertial force, ground force, and rotational force. When I was being brought up, these were taught to me as centrical force, pneumatic force, and leverage. But they basically talk about the same thing. First, let's talk about ground force. What is the ground force? I'm not talking about taking someone down to the ground and then, choking them out. Although sometimes ground force will be applied. Actually, quite often, ground force will be applied in taking someone down. Ground force is establishing that power by having a solid connection to the ground. So everything is powered from your feet. This is something that you see so often in martial arts school, martial art classes. This is why we focus heavily on stances, knowing your fight stance, having a good fight stance, right? Let me give you guys a quick demonstration. So, if I'm going to go throw this front kick to the target, and I just stand regularly and kick, the force of my kick actually is going to sort of come back and kick me in the butt because it throws myself backward, right? Yeah, my leg may be really strong and my kick may be really strong, but in the end, it hurt me more than my opponent if I just stumble back when I throw that kick because I have not established a good connection with the ground, which means the force of my foot hitting the target is going to come back right onto me. And since I'm standing only on one leg at that point, I'm not going to win this contest. So, by simply adjusting my alignment, so when I throw that kick, I'm going to lean back a little bit. So my kick and my body is lined up, and my body from my shoulder down to my standing leg is lined up properly. I almost feel like I have the ground behind me when I throw this kick, right? I can throw this kick super hard without me tipping backward, right? Right? So that is ground force. That is knowing how to establish that connection with the ground between your impact point and the ground. Okay, everything has to be lined up. I talked about this many times before. Fist, hit target, force, come to fist, up to wrist, up to elbow, up to shoulder, and this have to travel from shoulder down my spine, down to my hip, down to my feet. So if I just stand here and throw that super hard punch, most likely if I miss, it's going to make me lose balance, right? But if I have good solid stand when I throw that fist, no matter if I miss or hit, no problem. Because I have solid connection to the ground, my leverage is good. Ground force is utterly important to new practitioners of martial art because this allows you to have a very solid hit, very solid punch, very solid kick without needing big muscles, superb cardio, or anything like that. It builds that solid foundation so you always instinctually know how to stand, where to put your feet to get that good balance to make sure that when you do contact with your strike, you're not going to be the one that fall back. Ground force is also very important in grappling because as most of you would have noticed, when you are trying to wrestle somebody, to get your footing in is very important. Otherwise, you are the one that's going to fall down, right? To get that leverage, get your feet in the right position so your body is strong, your shoulder is strong. You're not just lifting with your arm, you're not just lifting with your back. You're pushing up from your feet when you pick someone up. However, as much as so many martial arts, taekwondo, karate, uh, judo, aikido, want to say that ground force is the ultimate, is where the real force comes from, that is not true. Let's look at the next one, rotational force. If I understand how rotational force or the centrifugal force, the force you gain not from leverage, but from building momentum by torquing, then I don't really need that solid ground force, not all the time. Right? One good example is if I am throwing a punch at very short distance. Okay, let's say I'm this close to my target. So maybe I got pressed up against the wall, right? Then no amount of ground force is going to be all that good because I'm being pressed up against the wall. I got a wall behind my back. And I'm already as stable as they're going to be. I'm not going to fall down, but I can't generate a lot of force either because I'm not able to get into the proper body alignment. In this case, we have to rely on going around and coming from the side, coming from the side, coming from the side, right? So rotational force is that force you generate without needing that super elaborate, detailed uh, ground connection. The force comes from building momentum while you torque the force around your own spine, around your own body. Okay, this is one of my favorite um, type of force generation. I mentioned this before. In Chinese Kung Fu, this is called circular force. When you move in a circle, you don't need very big distance, but you can still generate an amazing amount of force. Uh, I don't need to even, I don't have to stand this far back to get a full punch in. I can be this close, this close, this close. As long as I have the time, the space to rotate, I can drive my fist in with amazing power. I can use my elbows from this short distance. See? So rotational force is one of the best tools you have for generating a short, quick, vicious attack at close distance. Third and last, this is at the same time the easiest and the hardest to understand. This is the force of inertia. What is inertia? And imagine if you go on Google, go on Wikipedia, go ask your Amazon devices, it will say something like inertia is an object's tendency to resist a change in velocity, which, unless you are some kind of science major or if you have very good understanding of physics, this won't that won't mean shit to you. So let me put it in as simple a term as I can put it. The force of inertia is the force you need to move a target. Okay, so when your fist meet the other person's face, what amount of force is going to need required to make his face go from stationary to accelerating back? What? Now, the one thing about inertia that is why I say it's very easy to understand is you don't need any martial art training to generate inertia force. You don't need any kind of training at all. Now, with training, obviously you'll do it a lot better. But there are a lot of people never trained for one day in their life. They get into a fight and they can knock someone out. Why? Because they don't need training for inertia. They just, okay, this is my fist, there is his face. I'm going to put my fist through his face. That's it. That is inertia right there. Point A, my fist. Point B, the target. How can I use point A to make point B move? That is the force of inertia. Okay, so understanding this is simple, but to get good at it, you have to understand that inertia is comprised of two things: velocity and mass. Velocity and mass. Let me give you guys a quick demonstration. This is a very light bag stuffed with fluffs. I used to use this for uh, impromptu striking pad before I had money to buy actual striking pad for my students. So yeah, this is like a bag that used to hold rice and now just holds some foam and stuffing inside, right? So it's really light. So in another word, it looks pretty big, but it doesn't have any kind of mass to it. It's pretty light. If I swing this at full velocity at the target, let's try that again. Alright? That's like as hard as I can swing it. But it barely makes the target move. Why? Because it got the velocity, but it doesn't have the mass. The target has more mass than the attacker. So point B has more mass than point A, which means point A can do this whole thing. It's not going to do much to point B. Now, of course, we got to take into consideration that humans have feeling. So just because you can't knock them down doesn't mean it's not hurting them. Probably will hurt the hell out of them. Okay? So that is why you need mass, right? If you don't have mass, you can't move the target. That inertia force is cut in half. What if you don't have the speed? Okay, so I have definitely more mass than target. But if I don't swing my fist the way where it generates speed, let's say I do this slow, right? Then again, it does not achieve the same kind of result as if I move in with speed, aka velocity, with my mass behind it, right? So that's how that is your basic formula for inertia power, the velocity and the mass of the person doing the hitting. This is why a lot of time when you see people who are really good at their knockout game, even the ones who are not trained, they'll tend to start from far away and then charge forward, right? This build up a lot of velocity, and it definitely throw their whole mass behind their fist. Okay, stupid way to fight, but it works if the person you're fighting doesn't know what they're doing. Now, of course, understanding all these, it is also equally important to understand the nature of impact, aka the kinetic force. Why a small bullet can throw down a big human body or even a big animal. Because when it comes to kinetic force, when you understand how to generate kinetic force, then you can actually do a lot of this without the big setup, without the big rotation, without the big distance and big velocity and all that and all that. But for that, I would urge you guys to go check out the video I made on kinetic force. It is under the playlist Tactics and Series and Fight Psychology, and it's a video from, I believe, a couple of years ago. Okay, so with that, thank you for checking out today's Tactical Tuesday. We'll be back again tomorrow for some Wisdom Wednesday. For now, have a good night.